Hey, Vinny, welcome to Explore the IRL.
Hey, Fred, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to get you on. So, why don't we start? Give our audience a little sense of your background. You've been in Brevard County your entire life, as I understand. Too
Well,
much?
almost, yeah. So I born and raised here. Oh man, grew up in the 80s and early 90s, and it was such an amazing place to live. It was so amazing and so safe that everybody in high school couldn't wait to get out. And but that's what happens to nice little sleepy beachside areas and towns. And so born and raised here, went to public school and then went to MCC for high school, and then graduated and went to the University of Florida. And so started school there and actually started working at the same time I was taking classes. And so I finished a 4-year degree in 7 years. That's correct. Yes, I did a doctorate, but only got an
I had some
undergrad.
friends like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Of
but so
course.
it was such a great experience though, because I would take 2 to 3 classes a semester, and then I'd be working for the university. And I started out working in their disability resource center. And then one day I was answering some phone calls, and somebody set a laptop down in front of me and said, "Oh, I can't work with this thing. Vinny, do you know how to fix it?" And I said, "I do." And I fixed it. And then next thing I know, I was running the IT department for the dean of students. So
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
That's a
And
great
so
story.
thank you. Yeah, yeah. And I bought a house in Gainesville. Still have the house, but stayed there for about 17 years and worked for the university in a titled capacity for about 9.5 years. It was nearly a decade, and then moved back here, and have seen the change. And I know that old saying that in life the only constant is change, and I agree. But I think that change is usually best when you can know about it, plan about it, talk about it, and then try to find a way for everybody to be comfortable with the change.
So you have this long period in Gainesville, but your heart maybe is here and you
For
come
sure.
back.
No question. My heart is here. The people here. Gainesville is kind of a funny area, because the university is like 5 times, or was, the population of the city. So it was like when I was there, when there was no class in session, the city was just the city residents. But if you took the time to get to know them, which I did because I worked at the university, so I couldn't leave during all the breaks. They were very, very laid back, very caring, and it really had a lot in common with the area that I grew up in. And I remember there was a hurricane that came through, knocked a tree down on my property, knocked the telephone line down, but it was a loud bang. And I remember myself going out and my neighbor coming out in the middle of the storm, and we're looking over and saying, "Are you okay?" And he's screaming back, "Are you okay?" And it was just a
Wow.
place where people really cared about each other. And that's what I came from here, and that's why I'm back here.
Uh-huh. And so you see the lagoon when you're growing up, and it's beautiful. I remember in the mid 90s coming down and doing some fishing, Mosquito Lagoon, Northern Indian River Lagoon, and just in awe of it, and have an incredible story I'll tell at some point later in a couple of later episodes about my dad and his experience here from when he came from California and fished with me. But what did you see and what got you saying, "Hey, I got to do something here"?
Yeah, so again, just like you, stories of dads or for me it was grandfather. And I remember growing up, and my grandfather would have a wife beater on, but he's an Italian, so like he'd have hair almost all over the place outside his wife beater. And we'd go out in the lagoon, and he literally would have a bucket with a tire wrapped around it. I mean, it was like homemade floating bucket for clams and crabs and anything. And we would just go out and clam, with our feet. And then my grandmother, I remember she had a trident, and us kids would be playing in the river, and she would look for stingrays, and she would throw that trident, and she threw a fish casting net with her teeth. I mean, they were just of the land. They
Yeah.
were. And every Sunday we'd get together and we'd have, big Italian dinners. And the table always had seafood from the lagoon.
You
And it
had the
wasn't just
bounty
the
of the
food.
lagoon.
It wasn't just the food. It was how it was caught, how it was
Yeah.
prepared. And those are the
Wow.
type of things that just keep that memory in your head. My friends and I, we jet skis and windsurfing and, all sorts of stuff on the lagoon. So it was always a big part, of our life. But a funny story, or not, maybe not funny story, but
Right.
maybe a bit of a prophetic story. When I was at Hoover Junior High, I was taking a science class, and we actually had Dr. Treffry, who was known as Dr. Muck, in the 80s, took us out on a pontoon boat and showed us an area that he said was contaminated with muck. And so
Wow.
here we were back in the 80s in our science class out on the lagoon, seeing an area that scientists knew, was not healthy. And then, the rest of the time spending here, not really aware of my footprint, which again is one of those big things that I ask everybody nowadays, that we have to be aware of our footprint, but not really knowing and learning about the lagoon more than that part was at risk. And then coming back and just seeing it, and just seeing that it's not in the best care. And it wasn't as much as seeing it, but it was knowing that this area was just going to keep growing, and we could not continue to operate the way we had in the past. I still feel that way. And I don't know if you're familiar. The state, and just updated their stormwater requirements for property to hold, how much stormwater you have to hold. And I'm so grateful that they did that. But I think that it should have been, I think it should have been done before, because we always have to be planning ahead. We have to. And we've got to look at what's going on now and make sure that we're meeting the needs of the future, because it takes time to change.
Absolutely. So now you're on the Citizens Oversight Committee.
I
And
am.
how long
Yeah.
have you been on that group?
So yeah, since 2016, a friend of mine said,
Wow.
hey, Vinny, this seems dangerous but fulfilling." And I said, "Oh, that sounds like me. Dangerous but fulfilling. Let's do it." So I applied. The goal was this, and there are so many things about the Citizens Oversight Committee that I think are just brilliant, and this was one of them. They wanted to name the Oversight Committee before the election. So in other words, if you're going to vote for a half-cent sales tax, the county commissioners then wanted the people, the citizens, to know who was going to be overseeing their money. And I think that's
Wow.
great. I think that's
Yep.
great. And so in 2016, they called for applications. I put in an application. We were selected, announced, and then the residents were allowed to vote on whether or not they wanted to pass it.
Right. And this now then passes, puts this half-cent sales tax in place, which is raising a substantial sum of money.
Half a billion
Right.
dollars is what it's estimated at right now.
Incredible. And then you as a committee, what's the role of the committee?
So that's the thing. Again, one of the other brilliant thing is, in my opinion, so the one thing we are charged to do, this isn't the charge in the ordinance, is to provide a a suggestion of the project plan update to the county commission every year. So we say, okay, we'd like to remove this project, or we'd like to add this project, or we'd like to focus on this area, and we make those suggestions to the county commission. That's our charge. And so what we do now is we spend the whole year learning about updated science, seeing what people are coming up with and what they're testing, and all the new information and new ways of doing things. We spend all year round learning that. And then we try to infuse that into the plan that we then make suggestions to the county commission. And so that's it. But in 2016, John Byron, old diesel submarine Navy captain, and he was the chairman, and he would say, "We're building this plane as we're flying it," and we were. We were building it as we were flying it. But I think we made some good decisions then. And I think, we've made some better decisions throughout the year as we've learned more. And that's what we do every year. We look at the plan, see what we could do better, and submit those suggestions to the county commission.
Yeah, and I think that's really important point to raise that this plan started out with funding in certain areas at certain amounts, and then over time, as the science has come in and we've learned more, you've adjusted that and moved that to try to keep it up with the latest understanding of what's going on, what's happening in the lagoon, what has an impact, versus, hey, we set this thing up, we're going to fund that and go do this forever.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
really think that's a brilliant way to do it.
It is. And a lot of these projects, I mean, they're 3 years, 4 years to go from engineering to permitting to completion to monitoring to seeing how well it is. It's such a process. And so to have the funds in place for that long term is huge. It's so important. But then to also have the agility to say, like, okay, hey, this is a better way to do that. So let's continue moving forward, but let's tweak it. Let's make it better. And then having citizens who are close to the community, who are hearing the community, who are in the community, being the ones that are taking that information and making suggestions. It just really, to me, it is such a model of how government can operate and how citizens can feel included, and that their government is really working for them.
Yeah, and speaking of inclusion, this meeting is open to the public. It's on the third Friday of every month, correct? And
Correct?
then it's
Yep.
also available on YouTube and you can watch it. And so I've actually gone to a couple meetings. I've watched meetings when I can't get there, and it's fascinating. Let's just jump into an area that I know has some people, I've heard some concerns at the various meetings, etc. Muck.
Yes.
Let's talk about the muck issue a bit and the thinking from the committee on muck removal, its importance, etc.
Yes. So, and you said thinking from the committee, I'm going to give you my
Sure, from your
perspective.
opinion. Yes.
And the only reason that I point that out, Fred, it's not against what you said, but there are a lot of people that feel, oh, it's just another committee. They're just rubber stamping things. And it's so funny because if you meet the people on this committee, I'm blessed that I have a lot of leadership opportunities throughout this community. And this committee, I never met many of these people, if not most of these people, before this committee, because they're just not ones that are where you see everywhere, but they're leaders in their area and experiences. And so that's why I wanted to say we each have our own opinions. And I'm an Italian guy. And so I express my opinion, and I love it when others express their opinions. I don't consider, my father always says we're not arguing, we're discussing. So I'll give you my opinion on Monk. And
Sure.
it's been the same since the beginning, but there has been updates based on the science. My opinion was Muck was exactly as it was presented to me in the mid 80s, that this is an area of the lagoon that has to be addressed. And the Muck does not have a funding source. So stormwater changes, that's part of our taxes. And nobody wants taxes raised. I get that.
Right.
But as you have more people move in, there's more development, more taxes collected, that can affect the stormwater. When you have sewer, again, the usage fees, those fees can be raised to build more infrastructure. But there's no real source of money that was aimed at getting that legacy out of the lagoon. How we had mistreated it in the lagoon. And so there had to be a way. There had
And
to
I
be a
think
way.
it's
Had to
important
be.
to point out that it's not just sitting there.
Right.
It's
That's
actually
it.
releasing,
Well,
right?
and so that's part of the science that I learned about, because in the 80s I knew it was there, but I didn't know that it is actually perpetuating additional pollutants in nitrogen and phosphorus into the lagoon just by sitting there. Just by sitting there, it's continuing to add bad stuff into the lagoon. And so my opinion is we have to do it. We have to do everything. And doing a little bit of everything not only attacks it from all angles, but I think it also allows us to get the message out in different angles. People hear messages different ways from different sources, and they're interested in different things. Somebody might not be interested about the muck, but they're really interested about their septic tank that's backing up into their house. And so how can they get involved? Some people, they don't care about the septic tanks because they're connected to sewer. So how can they get these oysters, that everybody's oyster farming? So I think by attacking all these areas, we're also maximizing our ability to communicate, and again to keep the citizens involved. But just like you said, from the muck, it's legacy. It's in the lagoon. We've got to get it out. We have to stop bad stuff from getting in too, but I think we've got to focus on getting it out. And there's new science and ways about that. Cocoa Beach Golf Club, one of the areas that has muck, we're actually going to cap it. There's some science that if the depth is right, if you cap the muck, then the organisms in the new cap will eventually eat the muck and it'll go away. And so it's cheaper than dredging. But again, it's perfect for this spot. It may not be perfect for every spot, but that's part of the science. It's part of
Right.
learning. Dr. Fox, who is the new Dr. Muck, he Dr. Muck 2, he just presented last month, and I'm not sure you had a chance to see it, a whole presentation on muck and what they've learned, like real science, like putting up sensors near the muck, long term, finding out what's going on. And they're finding out that there's different types of muck deposits and they're putting out at different rates. And that not only is the muck bad, but the sand and the soil underneath it is bad. I mean, I could just go on. And I would highly recommend that people that are interested check out our videos from our meetings because we do learn so much. But there is so much to muck. And I think it is definitely one of the things we need to focus on in restoring the lagoon.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because as you just started going deeper and deeper into the science, and people can go really deep into this because there is a lot and there's more always coming. But you also talked about this concept of making it understandable for the rest of us. Some people have science backgrounds, some people have legal backgrounds, some people are experts at this or build that and things. And you have really four terms: reduce, remove, restore, and respond in that report, which I think are so critical to understand. The one you talked about, reduce the runoff, reduce the inputs from these areas, remove the muck, restore these water filtering objects like clams, live things, etc. I know
Seagrass. Yeah, seagrass.
seagrass. I mean,
Yeah.
I used to love watching the seagrass. It's so clear, and here I am on Sykes Creek. LeMay is right across. There's a huge muck bank right there.
Yeah.
I've watched it for the last 2 years. Oh my gosh, there's nothing there, you
Yeah.
know. And
Yeah.
and then finally respond, which you talked about, changing the new science. Oh, now we know we got to worry maybe a little bit about the sand below the mark. What are we going to do with that? But I
Yeah.
think it's really great. The other thing that's coming up now is we got this tax that's got to be renewed, right?
So it expires 2026. But there is talk now in the community about going ahead and looking to renew it. There have been estimates done on the lagoon about how much it would cost, to fix it, and it was in the multiple billions, is what the estimates were. I think, we've got such a great thing going, and I would love to see what the new language is going to be, the new ordinance, the projects, what they're planning with the money. I really think, again, as I said, that the process in place is brilliant and it
Mhm,
has worked. And I would love to see, what others are presenting that we move forward with.
mhm. Because there is more to do, right? We've
There's a
got more
lot
to
there,
do.
there's a
A
lot more
lot
to
more.
do. There's a lot more to
Yeah.
do. And not only that, but a lot of this work takes time to see the result, a lot. And I know anybody who is living here in Brevard or in the state of Florida, probably in the nation, knows how quick our population has increased over the past couple years. And so I think we've done some great work and have helped the lagoon already, but there's so much construction going on here that I think we have to continue to make sure that our focus is on the lagoon. The lagoon has additional funds to be able to handle the influx of people that are coming here. Our infrastructure has to continue. I think it's by 2030, um, every septic tank in the River Lagoon watershed has to be an advanced septic tank. And so
Wow.
advanced septic tanks have to be checked routinely and may even have to be pumped. I think they do. And so where's the infrastructure for that? Right now, the only place in our county that you can take the pumped sewage is in Vieira. And so, but now we're going to have more people with septic who may need to have it pumped. And so we've got to continue to make sure that we have the funds, that the focus is there to be able to provide for our lagoon as we continue to grow. We have to.
Well, that's great. Let's finish this up. I got 3 questions for you.
Yeah.
First one, what's your favorite thing to do on or near the lagoon?
Oh man, that's such a good one.
That's
So I can tell you, being a media, a film, a visual guy, the way that light refracts or reflects off water
yeah.
is amazing. And so there is a secret spot in Indialantic. I'm not going to go too far in this town of Indialantic where sunsets are amazing. And I love to sit there and to feel the warmth of the sun, to have that sunset, and then just see it reflect off the lagoon and off the grass and the mangroves, and just to see the world and to feel all this light and this nice orange warm light. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. So for me, it's seeing the lagoon in all its different lights, and now being able to see the bottom again. So that light also reflects off the top, but you also get to see it bounce off the sand.
Wow, that's fascinating because that's a night shot as
I
well.
know.
Sun's going
I mean,
down. The
that's
colors
it.
just drive me crazy. They're so cool.
That's
So,
it, man. That's it. Yeah.
so you may have already said this and you're not going to leak it, obviously, but your favorite place on the lagoon.
Oh man. Oh, there's it's a little park in Indiana. It's as much as I'll
So,
say. A
so
little.
is there another favorite place you have besides the one you're not going to leak?
I will tell you there is a so I'm such a solutions guy, and I'm such a let's find a problem, let's fix things, let's make things better. There is actually a Brevard County government meeting space across the river, across US 1, by Grills, and we actually had our first Citizens Oversight Committee meeting there. Virginia was like, "This will be perfect. We'll meet right on the lagoon. It'll be great. We'll be able to see the change." The only problem is it wasn't wired to be recorded. And
Oh,
John Byron felt it was so important that our meetings are recorded so that people, not only John Byron, the rest of the committee, but that the meetings are recorded. And so we only had that first initial meeting there. But I tell you that meeting space right there on the lagoon is really beautiful. So that's I've got so many growing up here, but nowadays I think I'm in the focus of let's keep working, let's keep getting this lagoon better, and so those are kind of my two places. But the many restaurants
yeah.
that are on the lagoon are just amazing, and it's so nice to be able to go out and enjoy this amenity we have, and it's free. Like you can go and you can sit at that park and you can watch these amazing colors, and
Yeah.
there's no admission to sit there.
It's fascinating how many times you talk to somebody and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I live in paradise." And it really is. Different parts of the lagoon, they're beautiful, amazing stuff. You can do all kinds of things. So the last question, what's one thing people can do to help the lagoon? Said one. I know there's a ton.
Yeah, there's a ton. That's the thing, man. I've got this list just like a card catalog flying through my head of like all these things. So I would say the one thing, if I had to boil it down, the one thing is to have hope and to see the change, because there is change. And I think if people can have the hope and can see the change, that will inspire them to get involved. And I can't tell somebody what they should do to help, because I don't know where they are in the lagoon. I don't know what their interests are, and there's multiple things they can do. But if you know the lagoon is getting better. The science proves it. The water is clearer, no doubt. No doubt. And so if you know the lagoon is better, and there are people like those on the Citizens Oversight Committee, including me, that are spending a lot of time, and staff who are spending a lot of time focused on the lagoon, making sure it's better. It is getting better. And so know it's getting better and take that as inspiration to get involved. Know your footprint, look around you, see how you're affecting your environment because that's what everyone can do. Everyone can look around, see where they're affecting the environment and make a change.
That's great. Have hope. I think that's a great
Yeah,
one. Absolutely, because it is getting better.
it
And
is.
and we can continue to make it even better and work to
Yes.
bring it back to what it once was. So
Yeah.
thanks so much for coming on, Vinny. Just fantastic talking to you. Hope to
Oh,
get you
thank
back
you.
again.
Thank you, Fred. My pleasure. And thank you. Thank you for all the time and effort you're putting into bringing these issues about the lagoon out. Again, you have hope, man, and you're giving others hope.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that.
My pleasure.